Let's look at the ratios, and they're a little bit apples to oranges here. But I got a Citigroup price to book of a 0.55 off the Bloomberg. JP Morgan shining bright at 1.44. And Mike Mayo, I'm sorry, Credit Suisse, and I get it, it's a different calculation, is 0.40. Fortress Fraser is pretty much on the cusp of being a Credit Suisse.
Well, there's a chance to do something about it today. Today is Citigroup's annual shareholder meeting. I have my one share of stock, which allows me to ask questions at the annual meeting. Unfortunately, there's some issues with this meeting. First of all, it's a virtual meeting, which they said they did for the, quote, convenience of shareholders. How's it convenient when shareholders cannot even attend in person? And then there's the formal proposals. Proposal number one, the election of the board. I'm saying fire Citigroup's board. At least fire the 11 of 15 members who were in place 4 years ago, when at the same meeting, Citigroup said their restructuring is done. Now today, under the new CEO, Citi is spending over $10 billion, that's my estimate, over $10 billion to restructure again. If you had just fire the board. This is
okay, but Mike, okay, let's be constructive here. You want to throw Peter Blair Henry out on the street. He's been a good guest of us, of course, his contribution to New York University and all. Besides that, he was a good basketball player. You want to throw Peter Blair Henry out on the street. What makes up a good board for Jane Fraser? What do the new members have to look like?
Well, each individual person on Citigroup's board may be fine in their own right, but collectively, they've failed to get the job done. You need new, fresh perspectives. You need people with finance experience, especially technology experience, governance, and we need people who are going to be really shareholders advocate, because Citigroup, for the last year, 5 years, 10 years, and 50 years, has had worst-in-class efficiency, returns, and stock market performance. And Tom, as you well know, we've talked about this a lot on this show. Citigroup has not been looking after the interests of shareholders. They've been protecting management, employees, might be a great place to be a customer, but when it comes to shareholders, they're getting the bad end of the stick.
Mike, can you be more specific about what you hope they do? Is it cut salaries? Is it cut staff? Is it shrink in terms of the footprint and where their operations are as they invest in financial technology? Or is it something more intangible than that?
Well, the good news is that the new CEO, Jane Fraser, has the potential to be the ultimate change agent. So Citigroup is selling their consumer operations in Asia. They look to sell their consumer business in Mexico. I've been calling for that for a decade. They are focused on gaining share. They're in 100 countries. They're looking at gaining share in banking, payments, and capital markets with multinational and cross-border companies. That's a great goal. They're more focused on that now. But I'm saying a restructuring that stops at the management level is a restructuring that does not go far enough. When it comes to Citigroup, we're talking to yet another CEO with yet another restructuring plan. At one point, you have to say who's overseeing the overseers, and to that end, we need fresh blood on the board. It will be interesting to see if any of the directors get less than, say, 95%, get less 90% approval. The 11 directors who were there 4 years ago when they said everything's hunky-dory, will they get a less approval rate than the 4 that have been new since then?